Now, we do have one of our winners standing by on the line. It's FlashX, fresh off a 2-0 victory. And I've got to ask you, Flash, were you expecting this to be a 2-0? You were so far behind in both games. Were you still confident the whole time?
Yeah, C9's one hell of a team. We knew that they were going to put up a huge battle with Worlds implications kind of on the line. We put in a ton of work this week, making sure we were as prepared as possible.
All right, it's good to see that you guys are prepared coming on into these weeks of games, and some excellent plays coming out from you guys across the board. I have to ask about the draft coming on into this one, because Cloud9 draft very differently to a lot of teams right now. Do you feel like you have to do a very specific prep and a very specific draft against this team?
Yeah, I know Chuck put in a bunch of work and a bunch of time studying a lot of the C9 comps with their VGA drafts over the course of this season, even looking at some of the Halcyon Elite games last night. They definitely like to play a very, very different style than basically every other team in North America, but Chuck, his hard work definitely paid off.
Now, obviously, this week, having VonC back in the lineup, is that a significant boost for you guys, or was it just an off week last week, or what was the difference between playing with Lucky Bread versus having VonC there?
Well, VonC's the paid professional on TSM, so it's a 9-day difference. I have never in my life played jungle competitively. I don't even play it on my stream. I hate playing it. I only like to play the captain role. So having him out last weekend really sucked, but definitely made a world of a difference having him back this weekend.
All right, well, final question. This is a pretty obvious question, but I feel like it has to be asked. The points are so close across North America right now. You guys, are you still the favorites? Are you guys the #1 seed from North America?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you very much
by
for
far.
the interview. By far, yeah. Thank you so much, FlashX, and congratulations on getting on into the semi-finals. And let's take a look at our MVP. It is also going to be FlashX coming on into that one. The Grace heals in that last game were the difference between TSM winning and losing that match.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely clutch heals coming through once the Echo was online. Again, they didn't lose a fight as once the Echo came out for FlashX. So a well-deserved MVP, and I love the difference in preseason FlashX versus midseason FlashX. Preseason, he's like, oh, well, these couple teams could give us a run for money. They're going to be really tough. Now that we're getting towards crunch time, we're the best. Absolutely. I love seeing that level of confidence.
Indeed, and coming from the captain of the team, that must make everyone else feel so much better on the team. His Lara play in the first game was also incredibly strong. I want to talk about something, though, very quickly. Their drafts, in my opinion, still were not the best. Not respecting the Blackfeather going on to old school could have backfired, and you could see glimpses of C9 coming back. In my opinion, by the way, C9 played a lot better today than they have in past weekends, so that's also for them. But going up against TSM, it was a hard opponent to take down.
It certainly wasn't. TSM are going to take this one 2-0. And that is going to round out our first quarterfinal of the day. And what a quarterfinal to start things off with. They certainly did a great job. We can take a look at the damage from that final game as well coming on through. It was old school towards the top side of that chart. But VonC and Best Chuck, almost exactly the same amount of damage.
Yeah, I mean, very impressive stuff coming out from all the carries. I love Joseph again, this Kroll build of going for the breaking point first and only a breaking point for damage. It's never been a build that is going to get you topping the damage
Especially
charts.
with weapon power or double weapon power compositions, it's too hard to execute on. Not only that, but he went for a heavy steel and a 6 sins and then switched his build into a breaking point. So selling that, he was first going to go for the Sorrow Blade, then he changed his mind. So not really sure what to go for. And again, the Blackfeather we mentioned, doing actually more damage than the Baron. I know it's not old school's top pick, but you have to respect it just because it's an incredibly strong one, and old school seemed to actually be performing on it extremely well.
Honestly, I was kind of calling out old school as we went into that series, saying that he was the one that was underperforming. He absolutely proved me wrong. Even if Cloud9 lost his series, old school played out of his mind here today. But that is going to bring us to the end of our first quarterfinal, which means it's time to get into our second one, with Rogue going up against the Hollywood Hammers. We're going into a rematch of last week's finals. This match is so important when it comes to the standings. Both of these teams desperately need this win.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. If for either of these two teams, like you mentioned, Munch, and there's so much riding on this. I can't wait to see the adaptations that have been made. We saw both of these teams adapting their draft mid-series last week, and now they've had a chance a full week to kind of analyze those 3 games and see what they want to bring to the table here in this week.
Yeah, not only that, but this series is so crucial because of the fact that if Rogue does beat Hammers here at the quarterfinals, then they go on to making the weekend finals, then they actually eliminate their chances of getting that world spot ever again, just because of the gap between the first place and Hammers would become at that point, the first place being Rogue. So very important for Hammers to win this series.
It's incredibly important for both of these teams if they want to make it to Singapore. Let's take a look at our first roster. It's going to be Rogue stepping onto the Halcyon fold. It's Evil, Hammy, and Pon the original.
And again, this is a lineup, we've been saying it all season long. If you did not know about this team beforehand, if you were not involved in scrims or things of that nature, it was a shock to see this team competing for that #1 spot because they've been in the league. They've been around with just slight tweaks to the roster, but they've usually been sitting around the middle to the bottom of the table. And this season, I don't know if something just clicked with this team mentally, but they have stepped up in a big way, all 3 players across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And then their opponents going on into this one are going to be the Hollywood Hammers as well. They won last week of the Vainglory8 Chicken, starting all over and status. Despite starting all over, not even being able to participate in 2 weeks, they are still in contention for that world spot. That's an incredible feat.
Yeah, I mean, it really was an incredible feat. They took a head earlier on in the season with some of their players being banned from competing, but once those players got back last weekend and the weekend before, they performed incredibly well. And as I mentioned earlier in the day, they got through a very tough bracket last weekend to win the entire thing, so they're definitely not letting it go easily, the world ticket. So they're trying to climb back up and trying to win it for themselves.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to see how Hammers are going to perform going on in. And we've been talking about the carries all day long, and we're going to continue that trend as the player to watch for this one is going to be starting all over coming on in. They won last week completely. Starting all over was on the roster, and he was playing out of his mind. His whole team was, but because we're focusing on carries, starting all over, it's got to be one you got to keep your eye on.
Yeah, and I feel like almost every game that Hammers play, starting all over, is at least a contender for a player to watch because he is just such a playmaker, both on an individual and on a team-wide level. His level of play has improved so much over the past 2 to 3 seasons in terms of his positioning and his decision making that it has been absolutely a pleasure to watch that that progression over the course of the past year or so.
Yeah, I mean, he's just been performing much better than the beginning of the season, in my opinion, and it feels like he got an extra bit of motivation as they got closer to losing that world spot, so they really don't want to let it go.
I have to say, I'm very excited to see how this series pans out because the finals last weekend were so close between these two teams. It's incredibly difficult to pick a favorite on either side, but we need to start to talk about the draft. We need to get on into this quarterfinal.
There's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, there certainly is. What are we expected to see? Because, I mean, we've seen Status playing things like Ozo and doing amazing things on it. There are so many picks that can come in.
Churnwalker and Saw for Rogue was a combo that they were running extensively last week, so I expect that to be targeted as well. But there's, again, with this team, there's so many power picks. A Saw first pick. This is not solo queue, boys. This is Vainglory8.
It does seem like Sibs is going to be playing again for Rogue instead of Pon, the original. It did work well for them last weekend. They got to the finals, but they ended up losing to Hammers, if I remember correctly. So this is a repeat of last weekend's finals.
Yep, certainly is. Arden going to be the lock-in coming out from Hammers. We'll see how well that's going to be playing out with Chicken and banning away the Churnwalker. That Churnwalker Saw combo is actually terrifying to go up
against. It really
is.
It's such a strong combo. Being able to pull targets back towards the Saw and then stun them up there, it's devastating, which is why Hammers are going to ban it away. They saw it firsthand for themselves last week, so not surprised at all to see that ban.
However, taking out the Churnwalker means Lyra is still going to be open, and they can't pick it here since they have already gotten the Arden.
I mean,
Lyra works almost as they can, but it wouldn't work. In my opinion, that would be a very weird composition. But Rogue, after this pick, I would expect them to pick up the Lyra. It works really well with Saw because you can keep him protected with the sustain. On top of that, when he spins up, you can use your portal to get him closer to his enemies.
Yeah, it's the common choice for going with a Saw is the Lyra. If it's not the Churnwalker, it used to be the Adagio. Anything that can give him that little bit of extra durability to stay in these fights is incredibly strong with the Saw pick. So I expect Lyra to be their captain on the side of Rogue, and at that point, then you just have to figure out what they want to run in the jungle.
I wouldn't be surprised if they also picked up Lance here, now that we saw Cruel did come out, but it is the Lyra like we talked about. Alpha following right afterwards, that's a very strong jungle pick because it can apply quite a bit of pressure against the Cruel, though that duel goes in the favor of Cruel, but nevertheless, Alpha is a very strong pick, a very tanky frontliner, at the same time packs a bunch with hit damage.
Certainly does. I'm curious to see how that matchup is going to pan out across the course of this game, and Hammers have to decide what laner they want to pick up. Honestly, very surprised to see Blackfeather making it through to the second round of bans and then getting banned out instead of being one of those first picks, but it's not going to be on the table for these guys. Curious to see where Starting wants to go with this one. If we see a treat like his classic Ringo pick or something along those lines.
I would love to see a Celeste come out because it works really good against Saw. He's played it in the past incredibly well, and it synergizes well with Cruel and Arden. So in my opinion, the Celeste makes perfect sense. You can hold against the Saw, you can wave clear until you get your level 8, and once you get your level 8, all of a sudden the matchup is very heavily in your favor because you outrange the Saw incredibly.
Yeah, not to mention dropping a stun underneath the Saw as soon as he starts up his spinning. You can also try and stun the Alpha once she gets low and prevent her from being able to use her ultimate. There's a lot of strengths to the Celeste pick.
So my big question coming into this game then is, how do you play around this Saw? Whether it's on your team, whether it's against your team, it's a pivotal pick, right? How are these teams going to be pivoting around that specifically?
I mean, for Rogue, they're going to try to push with it as much as they can. They're going to try to enable it to play and be successful. Lyra supporting him and Lane trying to get a couple of turrets, and later on, letting him spin up, then teleporting right on top of Celeste could be the strategy. Honestly, with weapon power, it's going to be very difficult for Saw to play against Celeste, though.
All right, we'll see how this one is going to pan out. I'm excited to get into a rematch of last week's finals. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know who you are supporting, how you think this one is going to go down. It's time to get into our second quarterfinal and pass it over to Humanist and Dowsy once again.
Well, that's right. We've loaded into the Halcyon Fold, and we have an amazing series on our hands here. Rogue versus Hammers. Two teams still in contention for that world slot, Dowsy, and obviously a matchup of last week's finals.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. The weekend that we have of games ahead of us here, Humanist, has just been spectacular. Not only that, the winner of this series is on opposite sides of the bracket to TSM. So if they were to meet TSM, it would be in the finals, and it could just 100% dictate the top standings as we head into our fourth week next week. It's all spicy at the moment for the side of North America. Looks like these teams may just contest this central Treant.
Yeah, this is Hammy actually still spun up from his original spin up as he just slowly made his way through the jungle. The Saw usually pretty good at securing this Elder Treant here. Starting's going to look to try and throw that Helio down and grab it. With a Supernova, almost grabs it. It does go over to Sib, so a nice little contest there, but Rogue will come out on top.
Yeah, Rogue were trying to wait for that Helo Genesis to expire before they went for the execute on the Treant, but it just wasn't timed well enough. But unfortunately for Starting Alova, neither was his Supernova. Does manage to find a stun onto Hammy, and it's quite exciting to see a bit of Celeste come out on 2.9. Kind of fell out of the meta. Do actually see Status chasing, or Status, my bad, chasing Sibs into his jungle.
He was there. Sibs pops the healing flask, and he's going to be okay now. They realize that Status is deep in their jungle now. Status can secure this healing camp on the back. It's going to be wonderful for him. He's going to get a Vanguard right back onto Sibs. As long as Sibs goes in Infinite Reboot under the turret, he should be fine. He'll jump right back, slap Chicken, but he doesn't really have any damage. It's not a threat here. Starting Alova still up in the lane. Actually, nice suppressive fire from range there. Hammy doing a good job. Hammy spun up. Sibs drops an Infinite Reboot, and Chicken really just playing with fire here. Chicken, he'll be able to get out as well.
Yeah, it's all happening, but it might continue happening if Starting Alova is not too careful. Datus has taken the backs away from... he's taken the backs away from Sibs, so Sibs is kind of forced to just chill at the moment. There's nothing to do but really put pressure onto Starting Alova.
Status moves around from the backside. He'll get the dead man's rush. Hammy had a nice reposition right off the bat. Chicken's right in there with Status. Status Spectral Smite activation drops Hammy low, but stay alive. He turns it around, just hits him with that damage, and a first blood going to Rogue.
Wow.
And a double kill coming through. Who is this guy? Sims? Must be a starter, right?
He's a wizard, man, and right now he is just dominating that early game despite having his back stolen away. It was disrespect from Hammers to think that the alpha was essentially a null factor. You know, it was something you had to be very concerned about, especially for starting all over on this Celeste. It was the reason he wasn't positioned far up in that fight, and the reason that Status wasn't really able to do much either. Cruel early game, has a lot of damage potential, especially when his teammates get involved. Against 3 members and a Lyra, it makes things so easy. And Lyra fairly decent into Cruel for the reason that she can drop her sigil onto the affected member and heal them up whilst they're taking damage, and also give the movement speed as well to escape the Spectral Smite. Good start for Rogue here, and an essential start as well. Hammers, they're in contention for Worlds, Humanist, but if they lose this series, they're no longer. So you have to imagine the pressure is really on the Hammers squad.
Oh, definitely. They're feeling it right now. Status, he's up in that right mustache brush. You can see the turret starting to drop rather low. Hammy will have to drop the spin-up stack. Status moving forward, though. He's just looking to get a little bit of that harass damage. I really like the suppressing fires out of Hammy. He seems to know just how far to push it to turn around, use that suppressing fire, allowing Sibs to get into a target very easily. That slow is incredibly effective.
Not only that, but the reason Starting All Over has picked Celeste into Saw is because the range of the Helogenesis actually makes the Celeste a very decent threat into Saw. So Hammy being able to land these suppressing fires and not actually take too much damage from Starting All Over is fairly impressive from him. If he's able to continue to do so, then Starting All Over may have trouble making this Celeste effective. Imagine when he gets the clockwork online, it's going to be a different story, however.
It feels like Status is spending a lot of time up in the lane. I think that definitely makes sense. He's just trying to keep the Saw from pushing Turret, exactly what Saw wants to do. Turret's still close to going down. Status finally ticks over to level 6. We're about 5 minutes into this one, but that's a really big tool for the Hammers here, right, Dowsey?
Yeah, no, it certainly is, and it's something that they're going to have to rely on is the Cruel ultimate to knock down Hammy, the core collapse to then keep him stunned up, and when the gauntlet comes on for Chicken, it's just the icing on the cake. Lots of CC, a lot of CC that Rogue have to be careful of, and right now Status is looking for the opening.
Man, he's gonna move in. Dead Man's Rush. He's locked onto Hammy. They block off the front Hell's Heart. What a play! A Roadie run back, but the Solar Storm doesn't care how far you run. Starting finds one. He uses the boots. He's trying to get the combo onto Evil. Evil will knock it down. Status and Sibs still kind of playing some games here. Sibs has the ultimate. He's going to move up around from the backside here. He wants starting. Can he get onto him? Termination Protocol. He wants to move underneath the turret. Sibs maybe making a mistake here. And that's going to be starting finding another kill. A very nice turnaround from Hammers, and now they start putting damage down onto this turret. This turret, potentially, no, it's not going to go down, but they get a lot of healthy damage out there.
Yeah, they do, but they have to be a little bit cautious here. Hammy's back in lane, and he does provide the threat of pushing down the first turret, which Rogue kind of needs. That's why Status is staying in lane, and why Starting All Over is just going down to the tree end to get healing. Status, though.
Can he stay alive through this? He tries to heal, he gets executed. Hammy stands his ground and mows the Kroll over. What a play, and no wonder they picked this off right off the bat.
It might not be too detrimental for Hammers, though. It's almost a sacrifice they've made to try and keep the turret alive. Not sure they'll be able to, though.
You know what? Oh, another thing, I really like that Hammy went for the reflex block before he even completed his first offensive tier 3 item. So really nice plays, and he's been able to dodge out. He dodged out the From Hell's Heart. There was a core collapse blocked off right there. Really nice plays and forward thinking.
Certainly, at the moment, Hammy should be able to push down this turret. Sibs is there for threat. Oh, wow.
Solar Storm drops him low. Hammy repositions with the Roadie run, trying to back up here. Status not going to move in for the execute. In fact, very good chance he goes down. Sibs waiting for... No. I thought Sibs might go for it, but he's not going to pull the trigger.
It's super important that Rogue get that first turret for themselves and keep this Saw relevant in the game. Starting All Over is currently building to what I assume will be a Dragon's Eye second item, the Eve of Harvest. Fairly typical for Celeste in the lane, so she can stay there, especially against a Saw. She doesn't really want to go... She wants to have as much energy as possible so she can stop the turrets being pushed down, but already that has failed for Hammers. So now a Dragon's Eye will allow him to ramp up over time, and you can see it coming through. Third item for starting all over, and realistically should be a Clockwork. Without the Clockwork, you can't get the Supernovas bursting as quickly as you need to, and that's the thing that's going to allow Hammers to really damage Hammy in these fights. I'm surprised to see Hammy actually going towards a Serpent's Mask for himself. Typically, this build is actually fairly weak, especially when you have a Lyra on your team as well, because of the fact that the Lyra provides sustain through her sigils, and Hammy Saw just has so much ability to lay down crits, but it looks like an engage from Rogue.
An Arcane Passage for Saw's going to take a ride, but he's getting lit up. Mrs. Kroll finding the kill right off the bat. Sibs, his Termination Protocol, and they walk right back through the portal that they came in originally. Swing and a miss by Rogue. That was definitely them trying to start the fight. They're going to lose their carry. They're going to lose a turret as well. If they're not careful, they might lose some more team members. Now Core Collapse comes down onto Sibs. Evil drops low. Hammers, they'll go ahead and let Rogue go, but they take the turret, take a kill. Very nice plays.
You know, the portal was good from Evil, and Sibs going through it was exactly what was necessary, but a little bit confusing that Hammy put himself in melee range of Cruel without any escape potential. A Saw is basically a turret. He doesn't move, he does a lot of damage, and so you don't want to start off the fight in the clutches of a Cruel and the rest of Hammers. Very surprising and an ultimately detrimental decision from Hammy to follow that portal up. The portal wasn't necessarily the issue, it was the fact that Saw went through it. Rogue can't really be engaging as a 3 like that. They can allow Sibs and Evil to dive on starting all over, and Hammy can just waddle his way over and lay down damage from afar, but I don't think putting Hammy in the midst of fight is ever going to win them any objectives. Also, you kind of see the fact that, you know, it wasn't a full Serpent's Mask, but there wasn't really any sustain for Hammy if he gets burst down that quickly, which kind of makes the crit build for Saw make a little bit more sense. Rogue kind of limiting the damage output at the moment on this Saw.
Potentially a Rogue ready to fight. Another Arcane Passage forward. Bulwark's down. Hammy takes the portal through. Gonna block off that Core Collapse. Starting turns around, just slaps on the... I was gonna say slap. I was looking for another word there. With that Heliogenesis, but you can see if they don't find it, they're right back through. Rogue making very clean shot calls.
Yeah, they're definitely looking to try and control the pacing of this game and make Hammers play to their tempo rather than allow Hammers to be the aggressors. Chicken and Status have a lot of engaged potential on them, and so if Rogue are making these aggressive moves and are favorable, then that kind of dissuades the power that Hammers' composition holds for them. However, Hammers will continue to scale up in quite a good way, and as soon as starting all over completes that Clockwork, he has enough for it. He just has to go to the shop and complete it. This is actually a massive power spike for Hammers, one that I'm sure they will look to try and team fight around. Now starting all over can lay down a Heliogenesis, and just a second hit takes for it to become a Supernova. If that's on top of Hammy, then Hammy has two choices. He either stays there and tanks the damage. He doesn't have an Aegis, so he probably doesn't want to do that, which means he's probably going to use his Dank Shank, the Roadie Run, to escape. That means he's lost all his stacks and a lot of his damage potential. Hammers with a very key potential right now to take over the game and get some objectives on the board.
No, I mean, the way you explain it on paper and the way it's working out, it seems like it's a hard fight. Rogue, they move in. They're going offensive one more time. This is Status. He's on to Hammy. Hammy, can he find the damage here? They have the Atlas Pauldron. Sibs trapped inside the gauntlet. He's finally free, but this is starting, finding the kill onto Hammy. Rogue have lost their Saw. Now, Sibs, I thought Sibs might exit, but he's going to move in. He looks like he can get starting all over, potentially. Core Collapse will come through. They've traded 1 for 1, and now Sibs ready to get out of here. Full weakness stacks on him. It's like, yeah, you don't have any wall jumps there, Sibs. He's going to be okay. He gets the sigil out, and now they jump right back in as the weakness stacks dropped off. Maybe Rogue thinking about fighting, but no real reason to chase there.
Yeah, it's very difficult to fight a Cruel in a 2v2. The only way you kind of win that fight is if you manage to kill the captain in that scenario, and Chicken was fairly healthy, so wasn't going to be a reality for Rogue. A 1-for-1, Hammy once more putting himself in the middle of the fight, and that Serpent's Mask makes sense if he's going to be face-tanking damage, but so far the damage output of the Saw is probably not really making the Saw a worthwhile pick here, because he doesn't really want to be diving onto the Celeste with the rest of the team. Makes things very difficult for him. Hammers, they're kind of weathering the storm. Chicken just sitting 300 gold away from having an Echo. That Echo will be enough peeling potential for starting all over to escape the Alpha. You saw in the last gauntlet Starting all over tried to position in a way that the Alpha would continuously hit the gauntlet wall if he wanted to continue chasing. With a second gauntlet wall there, I think starting all over will be a lot safer.
Well, it looks like Hammers definitely have control of these fights. I'm actually a little bit scared for Rogue as they get into these engagements. It feels like that's really their only option, moving forward aggressively, trying to burst somebody down with a spun-up saw. But I mean, do you see like a more ideal fight potentially they could take?
I don't think there is one. This is the issue of the Celeste into the Saw. It's such a great last pick, and Starting All Over has continuously claimed that he is the best Celeste in the world. So he's got the belief in himself that he can win team fights, and I think Rogue respect that. That's why they're continuously diving on to Hammers to try and remove the Celeste from the team fight. Hammers, though, they win the 2v2 after both carries are dead. Cruel and Arden should win against an Alpha and a Lyra. So Rogue kind of have to get 2 kills onto either the Celeste, the Arden, or the Cruel. Either of those combinations will work out for Rogue if they want to start winning team fights, but so far they haven't been able to, and this is becoming a bit of an issue because Hammers are only getting stronger.
Yeah, it's a tall task, and I am not jealous of the position that Rogue find themselves in right now. Suppressing Fire will go down, Hammy spun up, they're going to move forward. There's the portal, you can tell the team communication, they know exactly what's happening. Core Collapse blocked off, Starting All Over rips through with a Solar Storm. Rogue chopped up, they're getting the splash damage onto all 3. Hammy tries to stand his ground, but it's not enough. Sibs, he wants to get onto Starting, doesn't have the damage. Infinite Reboot procced off
Double
here.
kill.
He'll go down, double kill for maybe the best Celeste in NA here. Starting All Over really coming alive. 14 minutes in, and Hammers have control of this game.
And you just look at the team fight, it was a minefield of Helogenesis that Starting All Over made Rogue walk onto. If they wanted to kill the Celeste, then they had to continue walking to it, and Starting All Over said, I've got 4 Helogenesis on the route, are you sure you want to meet my Supernova? Turned out it was a little bit too much for Rogue. Currently they are struggling. Also, where's the Aegis on Sibs? He's gone Atlas Pauldron for the Cruel, and I understand that it's an important item. Atlas is one of the main counters to Cruel, but Starting All Over is the one outputting the damage. I'm sure if we see the damage, total damage dealt per game, after this game is finished, Starting will be at the top of it despite win or loss for Hammers, and so you need a healer, you need an Aegis if you're going to be able to face tank this damage that Starting All Over is putting out. Rogue made a really bold decision. Picking Saw first in the draft, it's something that has been successful for them in the past. But right now, it looks like Hammers have found the answer to it. And you know, it may sound like I'm biased towards Hammers with my analysis right now, but it's purely because of the fact that their composition right now, its win conditions are so more easily met than Rogue's, and Rogue have continuously been seen to struggle to win these team fights.
Rogue, they're going to take another swing at it. Starts to drop low, turns around, the Helios connect onto Alpha. Alpha moving forward, Prime Directive onto the Celeste. On the backside, Saw fighting with Status. Status trying to stay on Hammy, it's not enough. Sibs into the Termination Protocol, he's going to go down, and it looks like Hammy probably gets chased down out towards the east side of the map as well. Status is locked onto him, and Evil trapped between Starting and Chicken here. They're going to chase him through the jungle. We'll flip back over. It looks like Status finds the kill there. And Hammers just absolutely taking kills at will. This is just a desperate situation. I think Evil popped his fountain right at the end, buying a little bit more time. That's the ace coming through. A disaster for Rogue.
It is a very unfortunate turn of events for Rogue. This is the #1 team in North America right now, perhaps surprising to many. The Hammers last week, they ran a gauntlet of a bracket. TSM round 1, Cloud9 round 2, and Rogue round 3. Hammers took them all on and beat all 3. It was a statement of all sorts to say, we want to go to Worlds North America, will you stop us? They've got a Kraken here, Humanist, and they've shown that they are continuously dealing with this dive from Rogue. Starting All Over is putting himself in a position where Hammy can't do damage, and it's meant that Rogue's output onto the Celeste just hasn't been enough. Now with a Kraken at a choke point where Celeste is so powerful with these very quick supernovas she can output. And look at that line that he's put out. Starting All Over is basically saying, are you ready to take the L?
Oh my goodness, he's just going to start spelling words out of here right now. You can draw smiley faces with his Helios at this point. All right, Kraken's onto the choke point turret. Only a couple left here. Let's go, Rogue. Can you make the play? They're on to starting about as good as they have been the whole game at this point. The gauntlet comes down. You can't do anything. Chicken protecting his carry so incredibly well. As this is Hammers ripping through Rogue. And this should be Hammers taking game one in a very dominant fashion. Dowsey, I want to take a second just to shout out Chicken here. I think he's one of the most improved players in Split 2, maybe the whole season. He's been a great player for a long time, but he's stepped up like very few others.
Yeah, when Hammers removed him from his roster, I'm sure that was Chicken's turning point in his career. He said, what, you want to remove me and go with other options? I'm going to make you regret that decision. And Hammers right now have shown that with Chicken back on the roster, they are a formidable force. It looks like it's the starting all over show just due to his impressive Celeste mechanics, but the reason he's surviving in all these T-fights is that Chicken's gauntlet placements and vanguards have been perfect.
Gauntlets, vanguards, right on time. The Echo gauntlets coming through. Chicken landing the Atlas pauldrons onto the Saw as well. A thing of beauty. And this is a comp that Rogue is very comfortable with, so it's nice to see that execution. To break this one down a little bit more, let's go ahead and throw this over to Munchables and our analysts.
That was a convincing victory coming into this quarterfinal from the Hollywood Hammers. They managed to win the final last week against this opponent, and they've looked even more convincing than they did at the end of last weekend in this game specifically. Guys, talk to me about what happened here, because this feels so much more one-sided than it did last time.
Because it was so much more one-sided. This was Hammers just taking control once this Celeste got to that level 8 and started having the range advantage. All of a sudden, Rogue just couldn't do anything. Every time they tried to engage onto her, she just walked away and got to a safe distance and then started throwing the damage right back into Saw's face.
Also, what happened is the draft happened. You don't first pick Saw. So last week, Rogue first picked Saw against Hammers. They banned Celeste the second rotation because they didn't want it to come out as a counter pick. But they lost to the Black Feather that was picked up by Standing All Over. This time, they banned the Black Feather instead of the Celeste. The Celeste came out. There are too many counters than you can eliminate away from your opposing team to first pick the Saw, and I think that was the biggest mistake from Rogue.
Absolutely, and the Saw really did not work out for them. And I would go as far as to say that that was the sore point of their composition. But let's take a look at our first replay around 11 minutes into the game. And this is just some of the trades that were going back and forth in the early game.
Yeah, at this point, Rogue was still actually doing quite well for themselves, but you can still start to see, starting all over, getting the damage done with these Helios, able to kite around this team, even kiting around an Alpha, which is not very easy to do. Just providing enough damage and preventing Hammy from being able to get the damage done that he needed to on the Saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how if they can re-emulate that next time. Let's take a look at the next double kill that came on through around 13 minutes into the game for this one. And this is when Hammers were just starting to win every single fight.
And you can see here, Rogue tried to teleport in with the Saw being spun up, tried to get on Celeste, but once they kited into a choke point, that was a very good place for Celeste to be fighting in because her abilities can hit multiple targets at that point with their AoE. The Heliogenesis, the ultimate coming out, landing onto Saw is just too hard to execute on. And Rogue were trying to push the early game really hard. They could not. They were getting kills and they got a little bit of objectives, but it wasn't significant enough to snowball the game.
Absolutely. And then our next replay, this was the moment where Hammers really got hold of this game, and this is kind of the point of no return for Rogue. It was around 15 minutes, and this was a significant ace coming through.
And every time Rogue was trying to make these engages with the portals happen, but Hammers played around it so well. They were able to get the massive AoE damage. They split the team off here because after this initial couple of Helios come through, the entire team has to run away. Hammy is just on his own against a Kroll. He's not going to be able to win that one if he's not spun up already before that starts. And again, starting all over, able to find that damage. I can't wait to see the damage chart at the end of this game. But they were able to just, every single time Rogue tried to engage, they just got blown up in an instant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so difficult to go into those solar storms as well. They just do so much damage. We can see the last fight of the game as well coming out from the likes of Hammers. And just this was after a fight where we saw starting all over blast a solar storm across the enemy team, just annihilate those health bars.
Yeah, this one with almost a full health Kraken and Celeste and a Cruel Arden. They definitely finish off here. There was no chance for Rogue to come back and win this game. It was all about that early game. Once they weren't able to execute and snowball the game, and like have enough of a significant lead to get too far ahead and be able to execute their win condition, it became too hard to execute their win condition, which was to teleport on top of the Celeste with a Saw. And Saw suffered from not having enough gold because he only had a Solar Blade and a Serpent's Mask for offensive items. If you're trying to burst down a Celeste, that's definitely not enough damage.
Yeah, it's certainly not. You need to have that crit. You need to have those monocles going on. But let's take a look at the damage coming out from that game. I've been told that it's an interesting one. Starting on triple the damage of Hammy. That is insane.
I mean, that's pretty much the damage of all 3 other carries combined on starting all over. That is absolutely insane levels of damage. I mean, again, the AoE contributes to that, but it also just shows how effective the Celeste is into this composition. And as Hamza was saying earlier, you can't first pick the Saw because things like this are going to end up happening. Teams know how to deal with a Saw in the draft unless you bring it out late in the draft as a surprise when they can't counter it any longer.
I said he was going to be player to watch. I didn't realize he was going to be that much of a player to watch going on. And we need to start to talk about the draft. We need to get into game number 2 here. How are we expecting things to change? Surely Saw can't be a first pick again.
No, I hope not. There are too many counters into it right now, especially in 2.9 because of all the dive compositions. Similar to Baron, Saw is very susceptible to dive compositions, and if not, the very long range such as Celeste. So I hope Rogue doesn't first pick it. I hope they prioritize on something more comfortable. Well, this is a comfort, but something more stronger at the same time as a comfort composition.
All right, we'll see whether they are going to go for something like that. What are you expecting to see in this one, Bacon?
Yeah, exactly that. I think if the Saw comes through as a first pick for Rogue, they're asking to lose the series. If they can maybe organize a draft around it, and they're on B side, so they can see the entire composition of Hammers. If they can build a draft and end up with Hammers not having a hard counter to the Saw, then maybe it can come out as a last pick if it doesn't get banned. But Hammers, they know what Rogue is comfortable on. They take away the Rona as well.
And that Rona screams, I want first pick Blackfeather. So Rogue, if they don't ban it here, that's going to be very dangerous.
Yeah, but then they're going to be giving the Rhyme over. So you have to kind of choose which one you want. They do take away the Rhyme. Obviously means that Blackfeather is going to be first pick. And again, for a team like Hammers, this current meta, the current update, favors them so heavily, much like Space Station Gaming over in Europe, because the Rhyme and the Blackfeather are both so incredibly strong for them that whenever they're A-side, they can guarantee one of those picks.
I do agree and disagree. Oh, wow, the Saw again. I mean, this time against the Blackfeather, so they're not going up against the Celeste unless the Hammers flex the Blackfeather into jungle, play him CP, and then pick up the Celeste.
They can still play weapon in the jungle.
Well, they could do that as well. It definitely works well. Status has played it many times in the past, so it's possible.
Certainly is possible. We'll see what the direction this will be going in. And Rogue, they still could just ban the Celeste or even take a Celeste themselves. Could you see a Saw Celeste comp, or is that just too crazy?
Right, what I want to say, I couldn't finish though. I agree with you and disagree with you, Tasty Bacon. I agree with you that their meta picks right now are extremely strong with the Blackfeather, the Rhyme for the side of Hammers, but I disagree in the sense that they actually seek out what's meta and practice it so hard until they become extremely confident on it. Unlike Space Station over at Europe, who just happened to have their comfort picks be the strongest in the meta, Celeste ban comes out.
Celeste going to be taken off the table here by Rogue, so making sure that that cannot be the pick going into this Saw. We'll see how that's going to fare up against the likes of a Blackfeather. It's going to be the Churnwalker taken away by Hammers. We've yet to see one here today. We've seen it banned a few times, though.
Yeah, and again, it makes sense for Hammers to ban that away. Even though they have the Blackfeather, you don't want to give over the Churnwalker Saw combo, and by breaking up that combo, it just allows them to expose the vulnerabilities of the Saw even further with their next couple of picks. And I'm so heavily against the fact that Rogue went for this Saw first pick. At least the Lance will be able to provide a bit of CC, assuming that it doesn't just get blocked or Rose offensived out of or past. It could still be an option for Rogue to try and set things up and just make someone a sitting target for the Saw to start laying into.
I was expecting the last pick just because they lost on the Lyra last game, and this time, unlike last game, they don't have to dive on a target, so they don't need the portal. It's more about protecting the Saw, and Lance definitely does a better job of peeling for him with his Scythian Walls, with his Impales, especially against a triple melee composition. I'm actually surprised they picked up a Cruel against the Lance.
Pearl going to be the final lock-in here for Rogue. This is definitely a composition that's great at going against melee. I'm curious to see whether Rogue can pull this one off. They definitely heavily favored this Saw pick. This is something they're very confident in, and I guess we're going to find out whether they can execute it this time around. What needs to change this time for this to be a successful composition?
Well, the fact that they aren't going to be trying to engage onto a Celeste as a group is already something that has drastically changed for this game, and it changed in favor of Rogue, but they're still up against a Black Feather and a Krull with a Saw. Those two are both very strong into the Saw pickup.
I agree. I think the draft definitely worked better for Hammers for Rogue this time around, so they have better chances. What they will have to change, however, is executing on the early game and mid game a little bit better. Try to get more advantages, try to get more objectives to be able to get ahead. Get the items onto the Saw, then you become a lot more effective in teamfights.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this Petal pick before we jump on in. How aggressive do we need to see this being? Is this something that could bully the Krull, or is this just a matter of contesting those trees? Like, where are we going to see this jungle matchup going?
It should be actually in the lane. That's where the Petal should be.
Oh, okay.
Clear out the jungle and immediately rotate up to the lane. Help the Saw try and push these turrets and take them down as quickly as they can.
I mean, if anything, she can push into the jungle as well. It would be pushing multiple points at the same time, and they could try to use that strategy as well.
All right, we'll
Both
see
can work.
where they are going to pressure on the map on this one. It's time to get into this one. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know whether you want this to be a 2-0 or if you want to see the Rogue come back. It's time to pass it over to our casters again and get on into game number 2 with Humanist and Dowsy.
Game 2 in this series, and I cannot stress to everybody how important this series is to both of these teams here. TSM, I think, is 1 point up in the overall point standings over Rogue right now. Rogue are going to die inside if they lose the series here to Hammers. Dowsy, this is insane.
Yeah, I think they're actually tied. They're 1 point up because Rogue haven't won the series yet. And if they were to win the series, then they would go back to Rogue being a point up in the standings. But, right now it's the Hollywood Hammers show. Status and starting all over Chicken as well have just shown that they have this Saw comp dealt with simply in the previous game. Very different composition coming out of them in this game. This is all about diving the Saw, whereas in the previous game was about kiting it. We'll have to see if they can do that.
I want to see like an Olympic diver skin come out for one of these heroes, and then it would make a lot of sense. Maybe for the Black Feather. He'd probably look pretty good in that swimsuit, but yeah, this is all about diving. I think it's pretty clear. You look at it, this is just going to be get on the Saw, execute him, and I see a whole bunch of Atlas Pauldrons in our future.
Oh, if the side of Hollywood Hammers don't have 3 Atlas Pauldrons, then they're probably doing something wrong. Just the ability to keep the attack speed on Hammy down at all periods of the team fight will be so crucial. Let's talk about Sibs though on this Petal, because it's something very different on Rogue's composition. Previously, Rogue were the divers, now they're the kiters. This Petal provides a lot of power in the team fights, especially if Sibs is able to stack that crystal power. Wouldn't be surprised to see him go triple Shatterglass, just make those Munions super tanky and the spontaneous combustion super impactful in team fights. Look to try and blow up both the Crew and the Black Feather as they dive onto Hammy. And if Hammy can find himself a bit more of a crit build,
That's pressing fire into the Impale, starting all over with the Healing Flask. He's going to be okay. I guess Vanguard as well. A lot of sustained durability coming out. Status knocked back by Evol, buying a second for Hammy to go ahead and reposition there.
I thought for sure that could have been a kill. Iron Guard contract helped, but Status says
another
something.
Vanguard. Hammy's got his own Healing Flask. Healing Flask is pretty good, Dowsy. Chicken, he'll get chunked with the turret. He goes down. Hammy gets blasted. That first blood coming through for Rogue, and feels like a bit of a mistake there, maybe.
Chicken didn't use his flask. You said it's a pretty good item. Well, it's especially good when turrets are raining down on you. The shield and the heal may have just been enough to keep him alive. Chicken may have gone down to auto attacks afterwards, but probably should have used it. An advantage to the Saw is not what Hammers want to be giving.
I see Hammy using the suppressing fire almost better than anybody. You touched on it before, but we'll come back to that in a second. Sibs trampolining back. Look at the Seeds doing good work. His Status tries to chase for it. He's doing quite all right with Chicken there, giving him the Vanguard. They have the sustain. And with that Spectral Smite, he's a happy camper, a healthy camper as well. Look at that suppressing fire on 2. The harass is so good. This is what I'm saying about Hammy on this Saw. Evol, he's going to find a stun, but the Vanguard out on his Status on Evol. There you go. Chops him down, activating that Spectral Smite. He'll get it. Sibs using his boots. He'll drop a seed to try and peel Status off, but Status has got a double kill on this Krull, and that's not what you want to see if you're Rogue.
Very disrespectful from Rogue to think that they could take that fight against Status. Typically, Petal is very good into Cruel because you can kite her, but she was very low health from the previous fight. And Status was able to deal with the invaders into his jungles fairly well. Sibs, though, will get some crystal power into his system. That was where he was going wrong. Didn't really have too much to his name. Will make the fights a little bit more even in the future. But you kind of just see that Status is very comfortable taking those early game fights if he has that health advantage against the Petal. One of the things that used to make Petal very good into Cruel was Frostburn. No longer does Frostburn proc on all attacks or minions now, so you don't see Frostburn prioritized on Petal anymore. However, with enough crystal power, the minion damage and tankiness might be enough with the spontaneous combustion to keep that counter pick alive.
Plenty of crystal and weapon power here for Rogue as they take this turret down just under 4.5 minutes in. Small net worth advantage building for Rogue, but I mean, we've seen this saw work before. You got to keep the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, and I really don't want to see a Serpent's Mask come out of Hammy. The statistics on this build just shows that it is weaker than going full crit, and especially in the previous game where Rogue's game plan was dive Celeste and try and blow her up instantly, just didn't synergize very well. An argument could be made in this game that a Serpent's Mask is useful into the Black Feather and the Cruel, who are going to be diving on top of you, so the sustain might keep you alive. But I think especially Rogue, their game plan is to burst down hammers before they really get too close with the range advantage that they have on this Petal and this Saw. The spontaneous combustion can provide healing as well as a good dissuadant to diving the Saw as well, and with a Lance as well, almost like the premier peeling captain with the Giffian War, and I suspect Evo will prioritize an Echo fairly early on into his build. Rogue's win conditions are actually much better this game, and the Saw first pick isn't as costly as it was in the previous. Have to see if Hammers can execute their dive perfectly. We see Tension Bow on status, Serpent's Mask on starting all over. Items have been purchased. There is also that Shatterglass for Sibs to mention.
More minion candies being used. Status has got an infusion. He's going to be stunned up by Evil. A nice Githian wall. Hammy stutter stepping backwards, and he's got a kill. Starting all over is down. Status dropping low. Hammy, he lost the spin up, but he's going to get... And Status gets knocked back, and a double kill comes through. The double kill for Sibs here. Sibs making the play, using that spontaneous combustion, effectively healing and damaging his... healing his team, damaging his opponents. That's going to be a second turret for Rogue.
Yeah, this is why Petal's so good into melees, because the spontaneous combustion is very likely going to happen on your teammate as well as your enemies, so you're getting double buck, and this is why a double Shatterglass is even more perfect, because the healing and the spontaneous combustion will do even more damage. So this is why I suspect Sibs will just, you know, only have one item in his inventory especially, and it'll be Shatterglass. Right now, Rogue are showing the power of their composition, you know, the ability to survive, and actually this is something very surprising in the inventory of Hammy. His defense, a metal jacket, was his second tier 3.
Wow.
Showing lots of respect to Status and starting all over in this double weapon power composition. And I feel like this tension bow on Status could be a bit of an error, especially if he was to have seen the armor being built up in the inventory of Hammy. A bone saw would have been far more impactful for the team, but perhaps hindsight is 2020.
Indeed. I really like this item choice coming out of Hammy here. Incredibly smart. He's already pumping out serious damage. He goes for the level 7 infusion, Sibs as well. And Rogue, they take this gold mine. They are in a great position now. 4K net worth up over Hammers here, 7.5 minutes in. We talked about the importance of winning this, winning the series, but winning this game for Rogue. It's a big deal. Rogue playing like it right now.
Yeah, they cannot afford to lose games in round 1 this deep into the competition. It would put TSM above them, and even if TSM were unable to win the weekend, they would have a point advantage on Rogue, making their world dreams a little harder, and Rogue's week 4 just even more important. So take control of your destiny now, win game 2 of this series, and bring it to an even stance. It's exactly what Rogue are aiming for. 2 turrets already captured for them, pushing this choke point turret. And you see Hammers have kind of realized that their power is not quite there. Starting all over, doesn't have the breaking point, he's 100 gold away from it, and he's put it into an infusion. Hammers know they have to fight around this choke point turret. The question is, do they have the damage to do so?
You see the infusion come out for starting all over here. I thought maybe that was a signal that they were going to try to jump on top of Rogue, but maybe just a tool for them to buy a little bit more time, allow themselves to come online and stall out the push out of Rogue. I mean, Rogue, it was with a push comp, with the Saw, when they took the game off of Hammers last week. It's a very similar story here.
Yeah, and the difference is that Hammers have kind of drafted a composition which is about diving, and when you dive onto the Saw, it allows Evil to be the playmaker for his team. The Githian wall can just be so impactful, whereas in the previous game, Hammers weren't attempting to dive, they were attempting to kite, and Evil was making the plays to try and put Rogue in range of the Celeste. I feel like this game is about Evil.
From Hell's Heart, blocked. Oh, they canceled off the Gauntlet. Evil's a god. What a Githian wall. Sims trampolines forward, trying to find the damage. Status goes down first. Now Rogue. Chase, look for more. Githian wall's not going to find the stun there, but Evil's already done enough. How delicious was that Githian wall?
It's absolutely a perfect play from Evo, and it's exactly what I'm trying to highlight here, Humanist, is the fact that when Hammers are attempting to dive, it allows Evo to be the playmaker. You can see it just so impactful there. This turret will go down, but Hammers looking for a re-engage.
Spontaneous combustion comes out of Sivs, but the Munion's not really in place they want. Hammy, he's not spun up, but he's going to try to stutter step here. You see exactly, this is where Hammers are going to start to maybe take an advantage. Starting all over, has breaking points still infused up. They're going to chase forward. Looks like Evo will be the second target. Double kill comes through, both of those going over to Status on the Kroll, and Hammers maybe finding some signs of life here.
Yeah, they certainly are, but is it enough? Is it too late for Hammers? Already their choke point is down at this 10-minute mark, and Hammers, really what they can find here is 600 gold for the team. 600 gold will bring them close to a 3,000 deficit, but look at that item purchase for Evo. It's so impactful. A Echo. You see Hammy block up that Hell's Heart. If he was to go down there, then it would have been a gold miner for Hammers, but the fact that he blocked it means that that gold miner will remain on the map.
Just a pretty straightforward block right there. Starting, cheekily grabbing the mid camp right in front of Rogue. Glad to see that it didn't get locked down there. Status just clearing through his own jungle. I'm assuming Starting will go ahead and take that back rotation with him as well. We're 11 minutes in. Net worth advantage still going to Rogue. Dowsy, you pointed out choke point turret is down. Does that change anything for Rogue? Are they still just going to shove down this lane, or maybe do you pull back and look up for some more objectives on the map?
Yeah, the worst place for Rogue to fight is actually in the base of Hammers. It's super open and lands can't be nearly as impactful. So Rogue are trying to pick fights in the jungle like this.
Suppressing fire, Sims trampolines forward and they destroy Starting all over. Oh my goodness.
Couldn't get my point out quick enough, Humanist, but Rogue basically demonstrated it. If they can force gold miners, force sentries, and bring Hammers to them, then this is where Evol's lands will shine. When they're in the base, it is just basically open ground. There's not really much to knock anyone against, and that's where Evol needs to be fighting. So you're going to see Rogue continuously rotating around the jungle and trying to force Hammers to come to them.
Rogue, pretty much textbook rotations here. They find the kill. I mean, the kill baiting in from taking the gold miner. They get the gold miner, they take the crystal sentry, drop right back to the shop. Everybody's picking up all their items. Rogue look like they have everything they need right now. A fresh infusion will come out for Sibs as well. He didn't go with that double Shatterglass, so he went Dragon's Eye second item, but I think it's still pretty good for him here.
Dragon's Eye, if after 4 seconds of being in combat, outdoes Shatterglass as far as crystal power is concerned, so it is definitely a very good second item. It doesn't provide the immediate impact that a Petal wants, but considering that the roster of Hammers is actually very tanky, a Cruel, a Black Feather, and an Arden, then you're probably not going to burst anyone down instantly, so the Dragon's Eye will just allow for a bit of extra gold efficiency on Sibs, and it makes a lot of sense as well. Hammers realistically need to just not fight here. If Rogue don't get team fights for the next 3 minutes, then it's going to get Hammers up to a place with gold where they can look to try and blow up Hammy. But if they're to fight Rogue in the jungle, it's what Rogue wants, then it puts Hammers further behind.
You can tell it looks like Starting wants to fight, but they're in a bad place. I mean, Starting takes 75% of his health bar in damage before the fight even really kicks off. Sibs just trolling Starting out. He's like, oh my goodness, this is how a sub plays right here, bud. You're a starter for your team? Well, I don't really care. Sibs single-handedly forcing Hammers back into their own base. Rogue have control of this game.
Yeah, and they're going to take another Crystal Sentry for themselves. Not only that, they're going to choke out Status, who hasn't got tanky enough and doesn't have enough damage yet to be super impactful. Has that Blazing Salvo in his inventory. I wonder what he puts it into. Breaking Point or Poison Shiv could be the options. If he was to go towards Bonesaw, then he basically makes his Tension Bow useless, as Armor Pierce items no longer stick. And so the item that has more Armor Pierce takes over, and you just have those unique passives being the crit or the big burst of damage Tension Bow provides, being the only thing Tension Bow would actually be doing. Hammers are playing very aggressive here. They're trying to keep the minion wave down, but a good Impale may cause Hammers to run away. And you see that they're not really looking to engage fights here. It's because they can't. Starting all over, hasn't got the Bonesaw. He doesn't have an Aegis. He's not very tanky. Status doesn't have an Aegis either, making Sib's life a playground for this pedal, basically.
Playground for the pedal, indeed. Sibs is having a good time. 3-1-1 on this pedal here, 14.5 minutes in. Now, Rogue have control of the map, control of the game, but this Kraken's going to be spawning very shortly, and it feels like that's going to be a point where Hammers absolutely have to make a stand. And also, Dowsy, I just feel like it's been a little bit of hesitation out of Hammers in and around these fights where they're looking for an opening, but then they just allow Rogue to find the chip damage onto them.
Yeah, and this is the issue, is that Hammers are all in or nothing. They can't really afford to do anything else. And to be honest, until the Kraken is threatened, it has to be nothing. Even when the Kraken is taken, there's an argument made that Hammers do nothing about it. But I'm sure Starting All Over will want to go in. You know, Pedal's voice line is, I bet they'll underestimate me. Right now, Sibs is having a massive game.
Two-man Githine wall to start things off. It's going to be a gauntlet, but they've already lost Starting All Over. Rogue are in it to win it here in Game 2. I think very low chances we're going to see Hammers walk away with a W.
There's almost no possibility that a win comes out for Hammers in the next 10 minutes of this game. So that kind of shows how far behind Hammers are from hitting a point where their composition can contest Rogue. And right now, Rogue have a Kraken on the board. They're looking for Status. They're not going to quite find him. Maybe they just eliminate the Crystal Sentry just in case the game lasts longer than this Kraken push. This is it. Last chance opportunity, and Gauntlet is down for the next 50 seconds. It will not be available, Humanist, for the next team fight. One of the major engage tools of Hammers is not available. They have that from Hell's Heart. It's going to have to be perfect from Status, or this is EG, an equalized series.
Am I wrong in just feeling like they need to just go onto Saw? I mean, okay, they start out on the Kraken here. Suppressing fire is down. A little bit of damage coming in from range out of Hammy. Hammy's going to move forward now into range where Status can close the gap. The call has been made. Hammers, they try to get on, but 3-man get the ball into the spontaneous combustion combo here. Rogue blowing Status up. They'll take Starting All Over down as well. Literally no threat coming out of Hammers. Chicken, he'll surrender his life here to Rogue, who played like gods in Game 2, and this series is going to be tied up 1-1. What a performance out of Rogue.
Incredible performance from Rogue and spectacular play from Evo. No wonder FlashX said this is the guy to watch. A playmaker has been born here in the Vainglory8 autumn season, and Evo is his name. On that lance, so impactful, so deliberate whenever Hammers went for their engaged, and just meant Hammy was super safe. The unsung hero of this game has to be Sibs as well. Just completely underestimated. His damage was true. No shielding really built up by Hammers whatsoever. And Rogue equalizing this series means that it's a spicy one indeed.
It's a real spicy one indeed. I 100% agree with you. Sibs feels like the factor that was a little bit overlooked by Hammers, and he did so much work for his team. But to break this one down, let us know, how did Rogue do this amazing performance here? We're going to throw it to our analyst desk.
That's my question as well, Humanist, because we were criticizing this Saw first pick. We were slating it after game 1. They did it again, but this time they changed their strategy a little bit, and it worked absolute wonders for them.
I think we are all in agreement. Saw first pick is the future of Vainglory. We're seeing it unfold before our eyes.
If you don't pick Saw first in solo queue, you're basically trolling at this.
Saw first pick is still not the best, but this time they got a much better draft around. We talked about it before the draft concluded. They got the Lance. They were going up against triple melee play also, and they had a pedal against the Cruel and a Blackfoot. It was just much easier to execute this time around because you didn't have to dive in and burst the target. It was just about surviving. And that's why Saw's build this time around worked a lot better. The Sour Blade, Surface Mask, and just a lot of defense with the Metal Jacket and Crucible. It works because it's about surviving, not bursting this time around.
Yeah, and I mean, he did an excellent job of surviving during these fights, and we saw multiple times throughout the fights that Hammy was able to just kind of sit there in one place during the fights, and just all the fight was going on around him while he just kind of mows away at the health bars. And multiple times when they were forcing the gold mines, everybody had to come to him. He was already spun up. He was just a sitting turret at that point.
Not only that, but the pedal being able to just apply so much damage, because a Krull is not going to be able to take out the Munyon Seeds. That's the thing. Krull gets countered by pedal. It's one of the things we've always talked about. It used to be because of the Frostburn. Now it's just because he can't actually take care of the damage that comes out from him. He can't get onto her. And so many times we saw where once the fight would start up, it would be a Githian Wall or an Impale coming out from Evol, stuns up the entire team.
Yep.
The Munions are just going to town on the Blackfeather along with the Saw, and the two of them combined, there's just not a whole lot you can do about.
Absolutely. Let's get on into our replays. It started off okay for Hammers. They got the first couple of kills coming on through. This was around 3 minutes into the game.
Right, this was very early on, and we could see how much pressure this time around they were able to put, and they were able to translate it into objectives as well. The pedal does go in, and Lance does get caught out. However, that's the mistake they had. They got split. Pedal went for the Elder Treant, or for the Treant on the backside. Lance got delayed behind her, lagged behind her, and Cruel saw the opportunity, went in with the Vanguard coming out, giving him a speed boost, giving him some barrier, and slowing down the Lance even more. It meant that they could pick up the first kill and then go on to kill Pedal as well.
Around 9 minutes as well, Hammers managed to get themselves another double kill, and this was an important one because it was underneath a turret as well, and this was quite a defining moment. It was obviously kind of the end of the early game, so a very important moment in the game.
Yeah, this is when Rogue, they were making such great progress in terms of pushing in the lane. You felt maybe they started to overstep, and this was where Hammers were going to be able to turn this around. A great Impale from Evol onto starting, but it's just not enough to keep him at bay as they continue to chase down, take Hammy out of the equation early on. This is before the damage is really ramped up for the side of Rogue, so Hammers were able to get that double kill.
And the part of the issue is, like, even after that fight happens, Rogue was still like 5,000 gold up. They had such a huge lead.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they had 3 turrets down already so early on in the game meant that they had such a huge advantage. And Hammers were both infused there, so they had to get something going on for themselves. So picking up the double kills gave them some sort of a boost, but it was still, when you compare it to how much they spent on the infusions, it's technically not worth it.
Yeah, it wasn't. It didn't add up in the end. Let's take a look at that final replay. It was Rogue finishing this one out. They managed to get themselves a Kraken with just pure objective control, and there was not a lot Hammers could do about it.
Yeah, and again, you can see that as soon as they come in for an engage, a beautiful Githian Wall before the stun even wears off. Already, status was dropped because of the damage that was coming out from Sibs and Hammy combined. They focused their targets exceptionally well. Every single team fight, it was one member of Hammers, or every single team fight that Rogue won at least, it was every single member of Hammers going down one by one by one. You didn't see like a one member at half health when one member died. It was always like full to 0, next target, full to 0, next target, full to 0. It was very methodical play.
And on the other side, a reason why Hammers could not take down any member from the side of Rogue is because they had a double weapon power composition without a Bonesaw for the entirety of the game. Blackfeather was trying to build a Bonesaw, but he did not have enough gold to build it. Cruel did have attention, but which does give you a little bit piercing. But once all that armor was stacked, especially on the Saw, it was not enough.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't enough in this one. It means we're going to a third game. Let's take a look at the damage done during that game as well, because I'm curious who was topping those tables. Look how one-sided that jungle matchup is. That is unreal. But even in the lane as well, just a massive lead.
Yeah, huge leads across the board. And again, it was all set up by Evol getting those stuns and the roots, and then the team being able to just unload freely on their opponents.
This damage graphic is becoming one of my favorite things to look out for after each match. This time around, Petal and Sibs is the one with the high damage numbers instead of starting all over on the Celeste in the first game. So a very back and forth so far between these two teams. Next game will determine who moves on.
Absolutely, and it's about time that we start to talk about this next game. Saw has been the pivotal pick of this series. It's been the reason that Rogue lost, and then it's been the reason that Rogue won. How are we expecting this one to go? Is this still going to be a priority? Could this just be banned away? Apparently the answer is no.
Yeah, going through the draft very quick, but the key difference here is Rogue banning the Celeste right off the bat. I'm almost surprised that Hammers didn't respond with a Saw ban, because the fact that they banned away Celeste, you know they're going for the Saw.
Yeah.
So obviously Hammers feel like they still have something in their arsenal that they can play that will be a counter to the Saw
Indeed,
pick.
and to your point, the Rhyme pick, while it's huge for Rogue, that usually is upon the original, while Sibs does still perform on it. Sibs perform on it well. Upon the original is the person who carries through, so banning it maybe not as high of a priority. I'm curious to what they're going to pull out against the Saw.
I mean, Pon the Original was the guy that initially put Rhyme in the meta. He was the one that was using that pick to great effect all those weeks ago and making it a popular pick. Blackfeather going to get through the second round of bans here and go into the hands of Hammers.
And this is obviously a pick that Hammers like into the Saw. They've already run it last game. Didn't have the level of success they were hoping. The Petal is still available for Rogue, but I don't know if they go for that without having the Kroll already taken by Hammers. So it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to take to round out this composition.
Exactly. The fact that Hammers have the last pick this time around makes them feel confident enough to go for a similar draft. They're getting the Blackfeather, they're getting the Arden. They're not trying to bring out a new pick versus the Saw. They're just saying we're going to execute the same thing, or pick out the same thing and execute it better. Only this time you're not going to have that jungle matchup that is very heavily in your favorite with the Petal versus the Kroll.
And expect maybe a Lance to come out again for Rogue. And kind of go with that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality, because Evol is a phenomenal Lance player. We saw him be setting up multiple kills. They do go ahead and take that hero again. And there's the Rona to deal with the Blackfeather. This is starting to look a little bit scary if you're the side of Hammers, because as you mentioned, you don't know. Maybe this will be a CP Saw. Maybe we could even get the incredibly rare CP Rona.
Yeah, the incredibly rare. I would not expect that. I think it's going to be a CP Saw, but I do think it will go to the lane. It would be a treat seeing it in the jungle. Von C was a player who played that CP Saw in the jungle long time ago, many moons ago. So Rona is most likely going to go to the jungle with Sibs as a weapon power, and they will play the CP Saw in lane. Very interesting composition from Rogue.
And when you're in the position of Hammers right here, it's very difficult to round out a draft against something like this, because we don't know where these guys are going to go theory crafting on the desk here, so it's very difficult to draft against that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I absolutely love the CP Saw here in 2.9. The execution damage it packs is so incredibly strong on the roadie run and on the ultimates. Something we saw in EA is a CP Saw player picking up a Clockwork, then spamming his ultimate to stack those shells on his auto attacks, and then in teamfights having unlimited amounts of shells. Essentially, the Koshka pick does come through at last.
I'm not sure how I feel about the Koshka pick going into a Rona. You've just drafted yourself into a triple melee against the Rona. Yes, the Koshka and the Blackfeather are very mobile. They can try and get out of that red mist, but at least at some point, all three members of Hammers are going to be right on top of Rona. She's going to start spinning, and she's going to get 20 breaking point stacks in about half a second. So it's something they have to be extremely wary of as we go into this game.
So my big question then is, with a Blackfeather and a Koshka, are they going to have enough damage to dive onto this Saw?
They will have enough damage, but they won't have enough defense, in my opinion, because both Rona and Saw will have a lot of damage coming out, and they will have to prioritize one or the other. In my opinion, Rogue has a much better draft this time around as well.
All right, well, we'll see if that draft is going to pay off for them. It's time to get on into this game. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know who you think can finish off this rematch of last week's finals. It's time to pass it again to Humanist and Dowsy to kick off game number 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, game number 3 between Rogue and Hammers here. This is so incredibly important for both of these teams. Both of them, they are going to be fighting with everything they have to win this game here. And we see a very interesting draft coming out of Rogue in this final match of the series. Dowsy, why don't you break it down for us?
Well, we got Saw. has been the staple part of Rogue's drafting. The lands for Evo again is going to be very impactful, but Sibs now bringing Arona into the fray. Going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. He could go weapon power, which is very, very likely he does that and just stacks up heavily with a breaking point. There's also this niche possibility he goes crystal power, very good into people want to dive onto one area. The Into the Fray has a 200% crystal power ratio. I don't think it will come out. It would be incredible if it did, but it's something to consider.
It would be pretty epic. Roadie run, Hammy secures that Elder Treant, throws the suppressing fire. Hammers don't want to chase.
Yeah, no, this is Hammer's composition's a little bit more impactful this game. The one issue that they had in the previous game was that they had two heroes that require sustained damage to then provide burst.
Oh,
I mean, he does escape. Gonna lay down that suppressing fire, a little bit dangerous, but
yeah, Hammy's been fine.
The Cruel and both the Black Feather, they require auto attacks first to then have their burst, which is the we'll talk about it in a bit. Look at this.
Sibs able to secure his back Treant camp there, Evil, looking for the Githian wall, stunning them up a little bit. Chase is on. Status doesn't have the move speed. He has a twirly death. He can use that for the move speed now, but he's already chased down. It's too late. Evil takes first blood. Roger on the board. And Chicken kind of in a weird position. Sibs could turn around for the kill, but he moves forward across the map to start taking camps away from Hammers. Very smart plays here. Up in the lane, Hammy's taken advantage over starting. He's applied damage, so Rogue, a huge control move here.
Yeah, no, so much control by a failed invade by Status. It's not what you want in the early stages of this game, and starting over, like you mentioned as well, in a bit of an issue, has to pop his healing flask early under the turret against just the Saw. Now, the thing that this composition from Hammers is better for is the fact that they do have this Koshka. In the previous game, Black Feather, Cruel, they require time before they can burst a singular target. Koshka jumps in and bursts immediately. It provides Hammers so much more threat against the Saw and makes Hammy's life even harder when they do get dove upon. However, Evo on this Lance can really just shut down everything that Hammers wants to do, so once more, watch his plays.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So it looks like we're going to have Hammy with no... Oh, the suppressing fire just to tip Hammy! He knows how to use that thing.
Definitely does. That was Status once more. Too big for his boots. Have to wonder what his mentality is like after losing Game 2 of this series. Hammers know that this series is their only chance at Worlds. If they lose it, they are out of range of Rogue. Since Rogue is currently the point leader, tied up with TSM. And you have to imagine that the mental stress that the entirety of the Hammers roster are currently facing has to be pretty huge.
I mean, the stress, but how elated are these gonna... Whoever wins this series is gonna be feeling so incredibly good. I mean, it's just putting you on the path to potentially lock in that world spot. And of course, both these teams fighting tooth and nail to find their way there. Dowsey, we actually see... Hammy with a no boots build doing pretty decent work over here. I'm curious because he's going to need a reflex block to deal with this Koshka, but he's only got one item slot left over. Oh, he completes the item, never mind.
Yeah, goes for the Serpent's Mask first, and is just going to get some defense for himself, but no reflex block just yet. Status level 5, just hit it, which means that he's got a little bit before he hits that final point, and we'll get that Yummy Catnip Frenzy online. Evo can block it up if Githian War is hit to stun up the Koshka immediately, so there's that there, and I'm sure Hammy's going to be positioning in such a way that it makes it difficult for Status to just run through the lane to get to him. Sibs also going to be breaking the off-meta Vainglory players and breaking the hearts of them and going towards a Serpent's Mask for himself. I wonder when the Bonesaw will be prioritized is the real question. Sibs wants to get a breaking point after this Serpent's Mask to make his build strong. Hammy wants to get probably a Sorrow Blade after his Serpent's Mask, I would suspect. So the breaking point's going to be fairly late. It does open up the defensive avenues for Hollywood Hammers to get some armor online and kind of negate this damage Rogue can output.
We'll see how they build. It's definitely going to be very interesting and have a large impact now. Impale lands onto starting. He's only level 5. He'll get the Vanguard. Once again, Hammy, a beautiful suppressing fire. Chicken getting lit up here. Healing Flask comes out. Chicken holding his fountain there. Very good patience coming out. But this looks like this could be the power push maybe from Rogue, or Hammer's baiting Rogue in here. Hammy, he's spun up. He has good damage. That turret is starting to actually get to the point where you really start to worry if you are Hammers. But I guess coming up 5 minutes 45 seconds into this game, it's not like he was shoved down super early at this point. And there's no guarantee it still goes down. Just on a sliver of health, suppressing fire. Is he going to get that with the suppressing fire? Doesn't matter. He gets it. Rona actually getting the last hit there. But Hammers, they pretty much just watch as Rogue take their turret.
Yeah, didn't want to commit to a team fight. Starting all over, Chicken had taken too much damage to begin it off. And it just put their chances of winning it far lower than what they wanted. Hammy, man, he is not afraid to build defensive, is he? One of the only laners in North America that will prioritize defense over offense. Usually it's the opposite way around. He's got himself that reflex block now for the Yummy Captain Frenzy status. Can do a lot of damage with that Aftershock for himself, going towards what would most likely be a Dragon's Eye second, just to optimize the amount of damage he can output over time. But Hammers need to make this level 6 Arden Power Spike of the Gauntlet come quicker and be impactful. Chicken needs to start heading to the backs with status, share some experience so they can get it as quickly as possible, because Rogue are starting to mount a gold lead here, a control lead that Hammers might not be able to come back from.
A big jump in, a 3-man Githian wall out of Evil. Combat rolls back as Sibs starts to spin on the front line. Yummy Cat and Frenzy's going to come out. It's locked Sibs down. He gets the healing, but he still will drop. Another huge Githian wall out of Evil as Hammy stands his ground. Hammy's able to find one, looking for more. Starting, he's on point over the top of the Rose offensive. He's got the kill on the Hammy. Now he chases for it. Another big stun out of Evil. I think Evil got like 3 multiple Githian wall stuns in that fight. Wasn't enough though. Hammer has come out on top.
Yeah, that was just a bad reflex block from Sibs, a little bit too late, and that locked down the Rona, meant that she couldn't use her ultimate. Red mist to build up fortified health, and she went down very quickly. Ever since that happened, Starting All Over was able to focus down the Saw, whilst Hammy tried to finish off the Koshka. It just meant the Heartthrob stabs was too much for Hammy to deal with. A very nice execution by Hammers to find the opportunity. Could have been dissuaded though if that reflex block was just a little bit quicker by Sibs. So Rogue fans, don't get too worried just yet. Just because that teamfight went Hammers' way. With better execution, Rogue could have won that. Do see a gauntlet online though for Chicken. It's a big point for Hammers. This is where they realistically should start winning teamfights from. If those gauntlet players from Chicken are able to catch out priority members such as the Rona, such as the Saw, and force reflex blocks early so that the Yummy Captain Frenzy can find its way onto a priority target, then that's really good. But you notice Evol has just finished his Crucible as that level 6 comes online, so there is that team-wide reflex block for Rogue that they're going to be able to use to try and escape Chicken's clutches.
Absolutely, and Rogue the kind of team, and Evil the kind of player that wouldn't be surprised to see Hammy, I mean if he wants to, he could use the reflex to block whatever he wants, and the second thing that's going to be blocked, Evil will be right there ready to activate that Crucible and make it happen. I'm curious though, Chicken, how he's going to play out throwing this gauntlet down, because if someone reflexes and walks right out of it and you're not in a position to follow the Yummy Cat Frenzy, that could be a huge waste. It's a very long cooldown.
Yeah, super long. One thing I want to highlight is that, you know, Hammy has continued down this let's build defense mindset on this Saw. He has an Aegis and he has a coat of plates, but in the previous fight he didn't have much damage, and it was so obvious that he wasn't quite able to deal with this Black Feather that was on top of him. This is one issue that Rogue may face as another team fight breaks out.
Hammy, suppressing fires down, he's spun up. Hammer's trying to jump in, but this is status dropping incredibly low. Fountain will buy him about a half of a second here. Starting, he's locked onto Hammy. He knows he has to take him down. Rose defends him, buys a little bit of time. On point didn't connect onto Hammy. He'll reposition. Sibs starts up the red mist. On point lands. Starting, trying to trade, juking back Sibs into the fray. One basic, he'll take him down. As Rogue take the fight, now gonna look to take this gold miner as well. A nice win right into an objective take.
Yeah, and this time it was that Crucible big play by Evo to block up the Yummy Captain Frenzy and allow Sibs to spin up and get that fortified health, be such a nuisance on the front line of Hammers. There really is no backlines in this game. Yeah, maybe you call Saw a backline, but he's going to be in the midst of the fight regardless of whether he wants it or not. A breaking point now finished for Hammy. It is all about those long fights, the longevity of a team fight, and how quickly you can stack up that breaking point. Hammy will be able to do it relatively well. Sibs as well going to be able to get a breaking point online for himself, you would think, shortly. But again, he's also prioritized defense. Aegis is there, makes Status's build path choice have to be a broken myth second, which means he won't have the Dragon's Eye to build up stacks as the team fight goes on, kind of negating a bit of the power that the Koshka can really have at this mid-game, and once more making Hammer's win conditions just that little bit more harder to execute.
Rogue essentially one step ahead, dictating the pace of the game, forcing Hammer's hand as far as rotations and item builds here. We'll see how this fight's going to play out. A double Githian wall coming out. Was that an echo? It was. Evil making the plays and wrecking Status.
This is so many items to talk about in this game, and they're just, every item purchase that you can see has kind of dictated the team fights that we've been seeing. What a great position by Evil to catch out Status, and once more, Status going to be the one who kind of just feels a little bit tilted. Hammer's trying to dive on in, but this seems like a fool's play, as Rogue can continue to chip away at this turret, really not feeling threatened. Here comes
Couple
Status.
breaking point stacks here. Gauntlets down. Hammy's going to stand his ground. He's doing fine. He's regenerating. Status. He gets canceled out of the game. He got it. Evil is the best lance in the world. It's official. Chicken. He's getting lit up here. The basic attack's probably taken down. He gets off the Atlas Pauldron onto 2. Evil just stunning him up against the wall. He's like, you just stay over there. You're a non-factor at this point. Starting, not able to do anything as Rogue begin to dismantle Hammers.
Running over. Looked like he wanted to try his luck against Hammy here. There's a lot of heartthrob stacks on this Saw.
I mean, if he had stayed on with the Vanguard there, but Evil, he finds another Githian wall stun. Starting, he wants again, but just a sliver of miscommunication backfiring on the Hammers. Now, Suppressing Fire slows him up. Sibs is there, starts to spin on the red mist. Sibs doing work on the front line for his team. Evil's low, but still getting the CC off on the Hammers that his team needs. Hammers, are they about to be debated in this one? I'm not entirely sure. Starting, secures the mid over the wall. It's something, but it's not going to be enough here.
When are SEMC going to add a Suijay helper? Anytime you're against a Lance in the jungle, you just don't fight in the jungle! Because right now, Evo is making it look so easy.
There's your first Yummy Catnip Frenzy to land in about 5 minutes, and they don't even... They can't follow up with the kill. This is not what you want at all. Evil just lolling all over Hammers. Hammers will be able to take Sibs down. They focus it. They trade over the top. They take Evil as well. Hammers are doing it. They're trading the damage. Now, it looks like someone's ready to take a triple kill on the map, but Hammy is like the slowest thing that's ever walked through the Halcyon Fold, so you can't chase them down. Hammers take 2.
Cue the Benny Hill theme. That was just very unfortunate for Hammy, being one of the slowest heroes in the game, and this should be a turret going over to Hammers. They're not even finding the kill.
Has he made a mistake? Dowsy, Rose defense over the top. Hammy, he stands his ground. He gets 1. Can he take 2? He
One,
gets the double kill. Chicken.
2.
Chicken bloody. He gets him out of Hammy gets 2. Oh, Saw's a pretty good hero, huh?
Yeah, Mad Cannon's a pretty ridiculous ability. Executes when they're low health, and with the Serpent's Mask, he just had a little bit of a sustain. Here comes Evo! Wants to find revenge.
Impel. There's the Githian wall and attack combat roll forward, but Chicken, he's like, do you know what update you're playing on? And do you see that I'm Arden? You're not going to kill him.
Yeah, not going to kill Arden, who, you know, gets back a bit of health for all the damage he takes. Makes him very tanky, and it's not like Lance has very much damage to begin with. Wow, what a turn of events. Rogue looking so strong, but a little bit of a misstep means that Hammers have got themselves a little bit more gold into their systems. A Bonesaw now for starting all over, going to just rip through the armor that Hammy has already purchased. There's a Bonesaw for Hammy as well. Breaking point is there for Sibs. This is very important times. Rogue have continuously fought in the jungle, and it's made Hammer's life so hard. You have to think that any fight in the jungle is going to just work in favors for Evo with his double Githian walls. Hammers really need to pull Rogue into some other area of the map where they can't fight, but there's a Kraken spawning in just 4 seconds, which means Hammers once more are going to have their hands forced, you feel, and Rogue have a very good chance to find not only a teamfight win, but a Kraken as well.
Evil finding a couple stuns there as Hammers move forward. They're looking to take this turret down, and they will do so quite easily. Now, Impale into the Suppressing Fire, the Gauntlet down defensively. Yummy Catnip Frenzy not going to be landing. Rogue have turned it around. Chicken, He's on the front side there. Starting turns around with the on-point Evil. He's looking to lock somebody up. No, he goes with the gifting wall to go ahead and knock the back. Root comes out on the Chicken. Sibs begins to spin. Breaking points stacking up across the board here. And that's a big kill coming through for Sibs as he takes Chicken down. We're 15.5 minutes in, and Rogue are up in this game. They're going to be taking the Kraken as well. Things getting a little bit desperate for Hammers.
Yeah, there really is. And where's the Atlas Pauldrons for Hammers? They're against double weapon power, and they haven't got enough attack speed slows here. Only Chicken has a tier 3 armor item. Both status and starting all over prioritizing their damage more than their defense. Here's that replay of that fight. It's a little bit zoomed in, but we will deal with it. It is just Chicken being chased on down, I think. And I think he manages to block the impales. Oh no, look at that. Just gets taken on in. The echoed impale comes through. He does get block it, but it's pressing fire, slows him down, gets the kill. As we kind of just showcase some of the cool new camera angles that Aloha can provide for us.
Aloha, what a player. A 2-man get through all means Hammy can start to go down. Now Atlas Pauldron was applied on the saw. Yummy Cat and Frenzy does come through, buying a little bit of time. Hammy getting burst down. Hammers are doing it, but Sibs begins to spin with the red mist. He's got 20 breaking point stacks. Can Sibs do it? Hammers all dropping low. They turn around. They get few damage. What? Sibs, unbelievable! Now this is going to definitely be Rogue. It looked like Hammers were about to win the fight. Holy nuts, what just happened?
That was a huge, I believe, Crucible. It had to be the Crucible that was the shield onto Sibs to keep himself alive. Breaking point on Rona, so easy to stack up, and you just see the triple melee melting in the red mist of a Sibs. This is going to be the game, you feel, going over to Rogue.
Oh my goodness gracious. This game, it has been so insane. Okay, we're gonna give Hammers the benefit of the doubt here. No, we're not. It's game over. Rogue have done it. Oh my goodness. Rogue fans, stand up.
This is a very exciting time for Rogue. Not only Humanist do they maintain their point lead over TSM, but they've also eliminated the chances that someone else can take a world spot here in North America. Unfortunately for Hammers, now out of the running. Rogue going to the semi-finals, and they, of course, are going to be looking to take the win here in North America this weekend. They've shown that Saw pushes for the win.
I am so proud of this Rogue team right now. It feels bad, man, for Hammers, but you know, this roster is stuck together through thick and thin.